You've been owning motorsports for a really long time, and you remind me a lot of my buddy, and old boss Rick Hendrick. And I always give Rick a hard time because he doesn't have to work. He doesn't have to keep going. He doesn't have to keep pushing and trying to succeed and win races. He could go enjoy himself. He has a lot of opportunity in a lot of places he could go just to hang out and fish or do nothing. What is it at your age that continues to push you to be, a competitor? What is it? Like why aren't you guys somewhere enjoying all the success that you've had over the years? What keeps you coming back and getting up in the morning and go to work?
Well, I'll tell you, Dale, I've got over 60,000 people working for us worldwide today. And just the fact I've got to worry about those people under these circumstances is the reason I come in every day. And this race team has built our brand on a worldwide basis. And success we have is bred through the entire organization. It's given us the opportunity to bring a lot of young people up, maybe not in a race car, but in a car dealership or in a rental counter at our truck dealerships. And I think Rick feels the same way. This is something, my fishing trip and maybe golf game is going to the racetrack on Saturdays to see guys like you compete. But the relationships that have spawned from the business or the racing side into my business have been amazing. And I think there's always tension. There's always something in racing or in business that keeps your head on. And I think that's helped me at my age to stay focused and want to be a winner. And I think the most important thing is that I can lead and support the team members, the business members, and our partners around the world every day. And that's my main thought today as we go through this CBID 19. It's first and foremost in my mind. And I think that we have to give back. We try to do that as a company. I do it as an individual, and certainly my family does.
Now, hold on. Yeah, we'll get to COVID-19 in a second, but you're not just maintaining, you're adding on, and you're not adding on a couple of boards of directors here. You're acquiring big properties. So this is no small undertaking. I know you've been asked this already, but we'll ask it again. Why? One question is, why are you not wanting to slow down? But the other question is, why are you adding on to stuff so substantial and magnificent that we're talking about an entire racing series, an entire, one of the most iconic speedways ever?
Well, your first question is, look, I love what I'm doing. I'm motivated. My wife of 46 years continues to support me along with my 13 grandchildren. So to me, my grandchildren learned their numbers by looking at the race cars on the racetrack, but that's a short story. But more important, you asked the question about adding on. And quite honestly, if we were sitting here 6 months ago doing the same program, we'd be talking about something else. But on the grid at Laguna Seca back at the end of September, Tony George came up to me. In fact, at the BrickYard, I met him up in the pagoda. He said, look, I'd like to talk to you about the future. I didn't really know exactly what he meant. And then I saw him at Laguna just before the start of the race. He said, Roger, I really want to get together and talk about the future. And I remembered what he had said to me a couple of weeks earlier at the BrickYard. So I went down to Indy for Newgarden's championship dinner and got there 2 or 3 hours early and met with he and Mark Miles. And we went through a long discussion, somewhat emotional with Tony, about that the trustees had decided that it was time that they looked at selling the Speedway. The trustees have an opportunity, and the former governor of Indiana, Mitch Daniels, was the lead trustee. They'd sold Clabber Girl, which was their flower business back in Terre Haute. And so we sat down and talked about it. And to me, it's opportunity. I've always looked at undervalued, underperforming businesses, but here was a big pivot for me. This was a successful business. It was something that we had a lot of domain knowledge. Remember, we let Michigan in bankruptcy. We built California. We were co-owners of Homestead with the Francis. We had Rockingham. We run the races at Belle Isle today, our team does. So when I had that opportunity, I said one thing. I said, I'm very interested. So the next day, we signed a confidentiality agreement and kept it completely quiet. We went through a process, I think, I think on October 4th, we announced a merger agreement and then went on and had the opportunity to close this early in January. But I said to someone the other day, you'll get a kick out of this. I said, I think I owned the track inside. I didn't know I was going to own the outside. So now I'm flat out and trying how we can make it better for the guest experience. And, obviously, every step I take in that track and when I go to the museum, I see such history. It's just amazing. And the other day I asked one of the historians, you have any pictures of the 51 race? Sure enough, they had about 25 pictures. The guys in leather jackets, the cars side by side, little old wood pagoda there. To think I was sitting in the grandstands in those days to see those pictures. That
was your first race, right? That was the first time you had been there?
Yeah. Think about that.
That's wild.
That's awesome. But when does this acquisition, if not already, when is it worth it to you? When is it successful?
Well, I don't think I'll ever know that in my lifetime. Someone else will make that decision for me, maybe 10 or 15 or 20 years from now. But I hope that we bring a lot of guest experience. We bring great racing there. It's the history. It's iconic. And what you don't realize, this is a generational race. Think about the number of tickets that are sold just 500 hours after the event. People want those same tickets. And when you think about coming into this tough period we have now, the amount of people that had committed to come to the track for the race. So you don't give up your tickets. You keep them and you pass them on to the next generation. And the worldwide notoriety, and to think about, they have 250 to 300,000 people, and we do have 230,000 real seats. I never really knew that. I didn't count them all yet, but maybe I'll do that one day here while I'm hanging around.
There were two things that happened to me at Indianapolis Speedway that are far more memorable and rewarding experiences that I think fans would just love to have the perspective of. One of them was driving the pace car, leading the Indianapolis 500. Looking back in the mirror and seeing those cars. So I had been out on the grid. I had stood by the cars in the garage. I had been in awe of the technology. I sat in the cars, one of your cars, and thought that I had really gotten a great introduction into what these cars were about. But really seeing them lined up behind you in that mirror was a really emotional experience. And they really did look like a squadron of fighter planes, low to the ground, in formation. I'll never forget it. The other experience that I'll always hold dear is climbing in that creek out there behind the racetrack to fish out a brick. So I love history. And
that was just last year.
Yeah. I love history and I love tangible history. I don't care. Just today, we was walking around on the property looking for wind damage from these storms we had the other night, seeing a fence post with old barbed wire hanging off of it from some farmer putting the ground 70 years ago. I love just tangible history. And I'd be able to go down in that creek and dig 12, 15 inches down into the creek bed to pull out a full brick. Now, there's a bunch of fragments, and they're up close to the surface, but if you want the real deal, you got to go deep. To pull out something that was on that racetrack and that those cars had crossed over. You can look at it and see the rubber that is worked into the surface, the top surface of the brick itself. Just really it's hard to imagine, what that brick saw and what it was exposed to and the history that it was part of. And so that track is, it must be a really emotional thing to possess such a historical racetrack or landmark. And I promise you, we're not trying to put you in the rocking chair, but who beyond, you mentioned it, like the success of this racetrack will be known beyond your years. Who are those people? Who are those people that are going to carry on your legacy, to maintain the legacy of Indianapolis, to continue Penske as a motorsports operation juggernaut? Who are the people that you're trusting to manage that going forward.
Dale, just before I answer that, I had the chance to drive the pace car for the 100th. And I said exactly the same thing you did. When I looked in the mirror, it looked like a bunch of fighter planes low to the ground, ready to take off. I said exactly the same thing. But, from a forward thinking and when I think about the track and ownership, we've got some very good people there. Mark Miles is the CEO. We're Penske Entertainment, owns that venue. We have the IMSP, which is the production company, and we certainly have IndyCar, but as in all our businesses, we have people that have the responsibility to run these. And remember, our family has been involved in the racetrack business for a long time, and I would expect them to stay completely involved. And then the people we have, Doug Bowles, who just does an outstanding job, running that speedway for Mark and the team. But the internal, Kelly, who runs the ticketing, and the John Lewis and the people outside that are running the outside of the track. We just got some terrific people. And that's why your race team is successful, right? You can't work on every car. You can't make every call. And the successful business, but you talk about Rick and some of the people, your dad was like that. These guys knew what they wanted, but relied on those key people. And that's what I'm going to do in the future. And hopefully someone will give us a great card here 20 years from now. And hopefully we've made it a better guest experience. It's a great racetrack. We've got great racing. You saw the race last year. So I think that, that's something that certainly I hope will be a plus for everyone in the future.
Hey, have you ever gone wading in that creek?
I have not, but I've seen.
Now that you've heard Dale's story, do you sort of want to?
Yeah, I got to go find that out. I have to.
I can't believe you've never done that.
See, you hang around with the right people, you find out something you don't know. I'm going to have to do that. I'll report back. Okay.
I thought everybody that was involved in Indy knew all the bricks were in the creek, and there's still a lot of them. It's funny because I thought so. Rutledge Wood's the one that told me, man, we're going to go back there and we're going to get you a brick. I'm like, all right, because I've heard about other drivers, NASCAR guys, going back in there and wading into the creek to get their bricks. And so I'm thinking I'm just going to go back there and we're going to see a lot of bricks. I'm just going to pick one up there. I got my brick. And we go back there, and, man, we're looking and we're not finding, a nice full brick, just a bunch of busted ones. And then there was some debris and glass, and you got to be careful walking around out there. And then we figured it out. So – you gotta imagine they were probably taking them things over there in the back of a truck or something and dumping them off in using a wheelbarrow, something in piles, right? So we would sorry, my dog Gus. We would find them in clusters, like big piles, but they are now several inches underneath the surface of the creek. So if you want to find a brick, you got to dig down further than you think. And they're going to be in these little clusters, right? So when you start to run into a bunch of fragments, go down into the ground, and, man, there's a bunch of full bricks all piled up, like probably 3-4 feet underground. It's I'm trying to imagine this in my mind when they pulled them all up, because there were thousands of millions of them, right? And that they pulled off that racetrack and ended up throwing most of them over in the creek.
This is why we wanted to have you on, because we didn't know if you actually knew what kind of gold mine you just purchased.
Yeah.
So we wanted to tell you.
I didn't think we'd be able to tell him anything new today.
Well, let me say this, that I have a brick. Someone has given me a brick, but I can't lie to you. I've never been to the creek to get a brick, but I can tell you it's going to be on my bucket list here.
Yes.
Next 30 days. I'll let you guys know. I'll maybe have to pull my pants up and walk out there, right?
That's right.
That's right.
Sir. I know a good spot where there's still some more down in this one little cluster.